You can't have it all, especially if you're a mother. It's very difficult to have it all in life, anyways. You'll always have to make sacrifices and compromises. You will either compromise on your sleep or on your personal self care or watching TV or hanging out with your friends. Or if you're working on your big dreams, you will compromise on family time. My mom had to do that too. I grew up with an incredible mother who always inspired us. She made the hard choices in times that were even harder for women. She stood up for things that she believed in and she went after them. Thank you so much, Mom, for making me the person I am today, because every single day you inspire me to be more empathetic, to be more vocal, to be more confident. In your own special way, you have shown us how to live life this way, which is stand up for yourself, never let your gender bother you. So mothers do a fantastic job of raising not just a child, but changing the society with how they raise a child. But the reality of it is, it's very difficult to have it all. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because it's liberating. That means you can make choices the way you want. Our guest today is walking us through exactly that. She's a tech founder and she's busting the myth of a supermom. Neta Miedav is the CEO and co-founder of Vault Platforms, a startup based in the UK, which is creating anti-discrimination tools to help organizations create a more healthy culture. Their organization is stepping up during COVID-19 and helping protect whistleblowers and create tools that will help people report any discrimination during this global pandemic. She's also a mother, and she's here to talk to us how she is busting the supermom myth and how she came up with this incredible technology. So let's talk to her to learn more. Hi there, this is Prasha Dutra, and I'm passionate about helping you unlock your true potential in your science, technology, engineering, and mathematics career and beyond. Less than a decade ago, I moved to the US from India to live my American dream. I took my engineering career to the next level by starting my own consulting and coaching company while thriving at my 9-to-5 job. Money, time management, career planning, and personal growth are all things we'll discuss here. From expert guests and their stories to my own lessons, this show is an ongoing masterclass in how to believe in your brilliance and conquer your STEM career with confidence. Get a pen and paper and get ready for an education you wish you had in school. This is Her STEM Story, the podcast. Hi, Neta. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Prasha. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to all of our listeners.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're doing so many incredible things. You are the founder of Vault Platform, and you are stepping up in this time of crisis and this pandemic that none of us saw coming. And we are, in this crisis mode. And a lot of us are feeling hopeless, right? Like a lot of people are not, they can't handle the change and it's really difficult. But you've actually taken that and trying to change the narrative, but also help organizations and people mostly to be able to report any inconsistencies in following the rules and saving the world from this pandemic. So I'm super excited to talk to you, and you do all this, and you're also a mother and a parent, so we will get into that as well. So before we start getting into all those big questions, I want to ask, how are you coping with everything that's going on?
Thanks. It's a great question. I don't get to really pause a lot and ask myself, how am I doing? Look, I think, I'm quite used to be in situations of high uncertainty. Being a founder of an early stage startup means you need to kind of accept uncertainty and instability and welcome them into your life. I would definitely admit that this has been the kind of the measure of uncertainty has been quite overwhelming, even for me, someone who's quite accustomed to it, and I just feel very very fortunate to be touch wood so far healthy and united with my own small family here. My thoughts are just with everyone who have been less fortunate, and with those who are dealing with this crisis on the front line, our amazing, NHS.
I think it's every country stepping up, and it's really showing you the important professions. Like I was talking to someone, and I was like, "Look, the entertainment industry is the first one to go. Like they're not important at all, and they make the most money. It's kind of crazy."
Well, yeah, and I think it's just kind of it feels almost like it feels like wartime, right?
Yeah.
And the doctors and nurses are the new soldiers, right? In this act, and it's quite it's quite incredible. I'm always thinking the silver lining for me is, and my hope is that the lessons we've learned as humanity is that we need to follow science and we need to listen to science more. And when scientists are telling us to be alert and be aware of a huge danger that is coming our way, we should listen. To me, that message really resonates, and I hope it does with many others. Previously, I've been a climate change negotiator in government, so I hope the next big thing that people start opening up to and realizing as a real threat is climate change, because that would make COVID-19 look like a walk in the park. Yeah. So yeah, I just hope that the world and the public got a fair amount of education of how important it is to follow the science.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. You put it really, really well. I think it is one of the biggest lessons that we should all sort of take away from this. So what got you started on this path of science and technology?
I definitely don't come from a science background myself. I come from political background. I studied international relations in university, and I was really lucky to be offered a job in the British civil service and kind of grow my career for a decade or so within the civil service in Whitehall and become a government advisor on a range of issues that always touched on science, but again, kind of looking at things from a political or policy perspective. My career revolved around climate change and renewable energy. The highlight of my career was the immense privilege and opportunity to negotiate the Paris Climate Agreement. So I was part of the UK and EU negotiation teams and got to see how wonderful it is when countries can overcome their differences and find a joint interest and agenda to follow the science and do something good for humanity. So it was a really interesting career, and I actually never expected to become an entrepreneur. The idea of Vault came to mind one fine day, the end of 2017. It was just a huge power that overcame everything else that I've been doing, and I quit my job and I started this company, which is a tech company. So for the first time in my life, I had to kind of encounter this huge challenge of leading a company that delivers software. I really fell in love with it.
That's so amazing. Like, that's such a decorated career. So congratulations on all those incredible achievements. Civil services are huge, at least, in India, because Britishers have introduced that in India. So I know like how big it is to be a part of civil services. I don't see as much of it here in the US. I don't know if I'm not surrounded by the right people, but I know civil services play such a huge part, and you have to be really smart to get in. So congratulations.
It definitely has its advantages and advantages. I got the opportunity to work around really smart people and to play a very small part in something very, very big.
Yes.
The one thing that I don't miss in working for government is the pace of work in the pace of delivery. I actually feel like I'm I'm very fortunate now to be working in an environment that allows to kind of move really, really quickly. Actually, if you're not moving at speed, you don't really have a chance of surviving and winning competition or the speed of innovation. So it's a very different environment, very different challenge, but I learned so much by working in government.
Yeah, and I'm sure you must see a lot of huge contrasts like that, but also some underlying commonalities as well, right? How people are treated, how people are, how people interact with each other, how there are, these really big human skills that go into all industries, no matter where you are. And also the value of perspective that you probably bring to a tech company and to the tech scenario is, I'm sure, incredibly valuable, because that's the whole conversation around diversity in STEM, is that let's bring in more people with perspective so that we can make solutions which we have not even thought about the problems because we don't have the perspective.
Exactly. And that is something that I feel very fortunate to be not just working on a solution to this particular problem. So we have technology that results in better diversity and in more inclusion in the workplace. But we've actually embedded diversity into our own product building and making. So from the code to the product design to the way we, to our go-to-market strategy, everything is impacted and influenced by women and by minorities. And at the end of the day, I feel that's the right thing to do, because our product is aimed at protecting individuals that happen to be in larger numbers, happen to be women and minorities. So they should absolutely 100% have a seat at the table as we're designing those solutions. And I feel that's exactly kind of what we bring to the market today, because existing solutions for misconduct reporting have been designed by a very specific group of people that did not give a voice to the people that it aims to protect. So hopefully we are bringing something fresh to the market.
Yeah, and I think the whole difficulty with diversity and inclusion has been, how do you then build it in the DNA of companies? Because a lot of companies are so metrics driven and they are so performance driven that, the whole thing goes out of the window when you start talking about what's the business case here. And it's like, okay, this is a human case, like it's a humanity case. It's not all about business, but you will start seeing the business case as you include it in your values and your DNA. And I think the world is making those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, as a mission-driven business ourselves, one of the things that I'm trying to prove with Vault is that you can bring impact, you can be a mission-driven business and still be hugely successful and still be, and still building a very meaningful company from the business side as well. And when you look at this world of impact investing, for example, and impact venture, till recently it was considered that you kind of need to choose one over the other. Actually, you see more and more traditional venture capital firms investing solely in businesses that have some sort of a positive, net positive impact on the world this way or another. I think that's very much because of the fact that our culture has changed, because voices have been heard around the world that technology needs to be ethical, the technology needs to be used for the better. It can be used for the worse. It can, and same as science. And these voices have been heard, and people are voting with their dollars, right? So I'm very proud to be part of that new breed of companies that are pursuing a very important mission. In our case, is to make workplaces safer and better for all, and at the same time proving to our shareholders, to our investors, and to the business community that this is and can be even more successful business.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so great. So tell us, what is that one thing that people don't realize about workplace discrimination and how it has actually surfaced during COVID-19? Because I know Vault is doing something amazing in this field.
The first thing that people do actually realize, and that's a huge success of the Me Too and Time's Up movement that has definitely kind of made a dent on the world in the last 2.5 years, is the fact that this phenomenon is the breadth and depth of this phenomenon are quite astonishing. It's a phenomenon that exists in every sector, in every industry, and in every type of organization. So there's something to do with human nature, with hierarchy, with organizational culture that brings about misconduct, and in this case we're talking about behavioral misconduct, and that it's widespread. So I think that has been the big success of this movement, by just helping people to understand and realize how vast this phenomenon is. What people don't realize as much, or maybe are not thinking about as much, and that's exactly where that's the story of how Vault was born, is that the underlying problem here is that there is underreporting of misconduct in the workplace. So it's not just about the fact that this problem is in existence, it's the fact that it's not being reported as much, which makes it worse, and adds kind of a vicious cycle element to it. The numbers are talking about the fact that at best 75% of misconduct that is being observed or experienced by individuals in the workplace is not being reported. That's the best prediction. It's probably a higher number than that. And this means that whatever an organization think they know about their people and about their culture, and about what's happening on the trade floor or company floor or in the shop, or is probably just the tip of the iceberg. So we know that that there is a huge problem of underreporting. Now, if you take that problem as it stands and you add to it the very unique features of our day and age with COVID-19, you get some really interesting and disturbing data that should be taken into account. And I know workplaces are going through a lot these days, but this is definitely something that should be taken into account. So a few of the things that should be considered is the fact that, first and foremost, it brought about an increase in racial discrimination. So especially in the first few weeks in March, when the outbreak has started, it was correlating with data about an increase in racial discrimination, both in the street and in the workplace, against people of Asian heritage. And that's a terrible thing that companies should address. The other thing to consider is that already before COVID-19, a big percentage of all the discrimination, harassment, and bullying cases in the workplace involved a digital tool, this way or another. So be it your, I don't want to name any specific ones, but those kind of, communication and collaboration tools that we're using in the workplace have been a channel through which people are showing their less positive side as well. And now that we've been forced to move to this completely distributed model where we don't have the face-to-face anymore, we didn't have it in the last 2 months, and we're not going to probably in the imminent future as well, is that discrimination has shifted completely to digital right now. That needs to be addressed as well. Another point that I will make is the fact we suspect, we don't know yet, we don't have the data just yet, but we suspect that people would be even more less inclined to come forward and report during these times, because now you need to add to the usual worry that comes with coming forward and reporting misconduct, you need to add concerns about job security, and that changes the mix quite a bit. You're probably looking at a heightened state of this phenomenon overall, mm-hmm. And workplaces should be aware of that, because they are still liable for discrimination and harassment that is happening during this time. Although their minds might be elsewhere right now, they should be very, very
vigilant.
alert. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. so complex. It's just a complex problem. Every time we talk about diversity and inclusion and, all these, human related stuff that happens at businesses, it's really complex. And with COVID-19, I know people are focused on something different. It's something we've never seen before, and it has caught a lot of leadership off guard. It's actually showing the true leadership, and leaders too are coming up, and also showing people who are not leaders. And it's kind of like a very, very, very evolving and quickly evolving scenario at workplaces for sure. And I'm grateful that you explained it in such detail. So tell us how Vault platform is actually solving this issue for businesses.
We started by looking at why is the system so broken? Why do we see such high levels of underreporting? And what can be done to fix trust internally? And can we use technology, speaking about kind of using technology to fix real problems and do good, is to how can we use technology to increase the levels of internal trust in the workplace and overcome the kind of traditional friction that exists between quote unquote people and their, and the corporate for which they work. Mm-hmm. We've looked at existing solutions for reporting, and they mainly rely on either an open door policy of sorts or some sort of a compliance inbox. But more often than not, for large organizations, it includes a hotline, which is a very outdated way and very impersonal way for people to come forward and report misconduct. Because if you've just gone through an event that could be life-changing for you, could have meaningful and maybe devastating impact on your personal and professional life, you're probably not going to report it to a call center somewhere that has absolutely no vested interest in your well-being or in the company for which you work. So we started looking at the problem from that perspective, and we realized that if we want to change things, we need to reverse engineer the existing solutions to put the employee experience in the center. And to put that experience in the center, and definitely when we talk about the employee, we need to think very carefully about gender. We need to think very carefully about other protected characteristics, about minorities as well, and kind of think about their particular experience in the workplace as we're designing a solution that will give them an empowered position and an opportunity for a real voice. So essentially, with that in mind, we've created a platform, an end-to-end platform to record, report, and resolve misconduct in the workplace that includes the opportunity to create time-stamped logs or records of events that include evidence, if there is kind of hard evidence to attach to it, and include different ways of coming forward. It's all about coming forward internally and trusting your workplace to resolve it. But the way we're doing this is adding to the old binary, anonymous, or in-name ways. We've added a third option, which we're very, very proud of and believe it's a real game changer. So is our clients, which is called Go Together. And Go Together essentially allows you to submit your record under the condition you're not the first or only one to have done so. So our technology, our algorithms are connecting the dots on repeated patterns of harm and giving people more confidence and strength in numbers by coming forward knowing that they're not alone, and giving companies the opportunity of being on top of those repeated patterns before they become a scandal or a lawsuit or just a very serious problem for their culture. Essentially, we believe we've created the world's most advanced reporting app for the workplace, and we give a real opportunity for the problems to be surfaced up and resolved this way.
That's amazing. I think that is so great from all perspectives, right? The people who are reporting, but also the people who are trying to solve the problem, as you said. Like, if you're going to have these fragmented discussions about similar issues and you don't have tools or data to kind of link those all together, then in some cases you're chasing your own tail, or you're just taking decisions that are not solving the root cause. And I think good leaders around the world are definitely going to be very excited to use something like that in terms of how we improve our employee experience, and how, at the end of the day, no matter how much money the company brings in, employees play like one of the biggest roles in making that happen. So they will always be one of the biggest assets, that a company has.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially in STEM, the problems are complex, the workplaces are complex, the solutions are complex, and so if we can't come to work being our full self, it's really difficult to contribute at the maximum level. And then organizations go after, oh, why is the productivity so low? Of course, people are not showing up as their own self. No wonder the productivity is so low. So now changing gears, talking a little bit about your other part of your life, which is being a parent, being a mother, being a founder, all these things that you're doing. One interesting thing that we had in this pre-interview conversation, which I definitely want to touch on, is how can we break the super mom myth? Because, especially around Mother's Day, we see this super mom everywhere. I know I have called my mom super mom many, many times, thinking that it's a compliment. But tell us why that word is actually has a negative connotation. It's something that we shouldn't use as much.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation. I feel like a super mom when I'm making it to the end of the day and I'm like, I'm putting down two kind of fed and clean children to bed. That's a super mom moment for me. But no, I think the concept of super mom is doing disservice to women. It's really important to unveil the myth around being a founder and a mother, and not just a founder, any career that is very intense and demanding. The idea that we can have it all is putting huge pressure on our shoulders, and it's actually not realistic. It might not be the coolest message around, but actually doing both, being in my case, being both a founder and a mother, meant I had to make a lot of sacrifices, and I'm making compromises every day, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the reality of it. Again, it might not be very popular to say, but the reality is that being a founder of a tech startup is an all-consuming job. Yeah. It's really hard to explain how little does it leave in life for other things. And the only way of managing through this whilst being a mother is by realizing that you're not going to be the perfect mom that you want it to be, is realizing that you need to be forgiving towards yourself when you're spending less time with your children that you would have wanted to. Because reality check, do I spend a lot of time with my children? No, unfortunately, the answer is no. I don't, definitely not as much as I would have wanted to, or imagined that I will when I had them, right? So it's really about kind of be more forgiving and think about the benefits that the situation brings about. Maybe because it's Mother's Day, I'm going to bring my own mom into this. I sadly lost my mom this year to breast cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. She's been I never talked about this publicly, but here you are because it's Mother's Day. I'm opening up about this. My mom was actually a great role model of a woman in STEM. She was a computer science lecturer and professor in a university, and she was a huge driving force behind my decision to quit my previous career and start a startup. And I think this is something we need to be doing. We need to support our daughters in making these kind of risk-taking life choices. It's really, really important that we stand behind them. And my mom definitely stood behind me when I embarked on this journey. She was one of the first female software engineers at IBM in Israel back in the 70s and early 80s. And she made a decision. She made a decision that she will quit her career to be at home, so that and exchange it for an education career, so that she will have a chance of spending more time with me. And I completely respect that. That was the compromise and the sacrifice that she made. And today, kind of from my perspective today, I completely respect that. I made a very opposite choice, and she respected my choice very much so as well, as a grandmother and as my own mom. And so all I'm saying is you always pay a price somewhere. You really cannot. It's very, very difficult to hold that stick on both ends. And I hope that this is true not just for mothers. This is true for dads as well. This is our reality as parents. it's hard being a parent these days and have a a truly demanding career. And we don't always have as a founder of our own business, we can't ask anyone for flexibility or part-time working or job sharing. It just doesn't work for some of us, right? But we teach our children something. We teach them a valuable lesson. And I hope my daughters grow up knowing that they can achieve and pursue their dreams in a big way. And they will have their own mom to support them in doing so.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think moms can change the world, right? I mean, if mothers make this personal choice, like you said, not defining motherhood in the same context for everyone, saying this is the yardstick, you all have to follow it, and instead letting mothers decide for themselves, make those decisions for their own family as a family, not as a society saying, oh, a mom showed up to the soccer game and a mom should be making lunches and mom should be home when kids get home. I think that should be left onto the household and the parents to decide who stays home, who goes to work. And when we do that, we successfully kind of unlock this equality in the household where, if I'm more ambitious, I get to go after whatever makes me feel more alive, and, my partner can support it. But then when we make those choices, we create these role models in our own households where we teach daughters, I left my job, but you don't have to. It's totally your choice, like your mother did with you. It's
exactly.
Awesome.
And I need like a big shout out to my partner. My husband happens to be my co-founder. We've started Vault platform together. So jointly, we're managing a pretty hectic lifestyle and schedule. However, pre-corona times, given that I have the CEO role and comes with more public-facing responsibilities, I used to be the one that travels quite frequently. Mm-hmm. Our girls are learning that dad's role is in the caregiving is equal to their mom, and actually it's dad that gets to kind of stay with them when mom is working. I think that's a hugely valuable lesson to them. I hope that they will be kind of masters of their own choices and their own lifestyle, but I hope that they grow up knowing that is definitely a possibility for the life that they choose for themselves, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, when we have equal families, we raise equal citizens and we raise equal people, which then go on to make the world an equal place. So, I mean, I've seen it in my own household and I've seen it in my in-laws' household. And I think it gives you so much perspective, empathy, choices, right? Like anything is possible. And no society puts us in a box, right? We decide. And my mother was, because it's Mother's Day, we'll give a shout out to everyone's mother. But my mom too, like she was the only working woman at the time. She was the first executive officer in her field amongst 100 men in the 80s. Like when, women in India were not even allowed to leave the house. And, she was doing all these great things and we were latchkey kids all our lives. But she made that choice to give us a better life, but she heard there was a lot of pushback from the society at the time that what kind of mom you are, what kind of wife you are. I mean, not that she missed a single meal, like she cooked every meal from scratch. It was fantastic. We never took money for lunches. Like she was always doing everything. She was trying. But she loved her job too much and she refused to quit, no matter how much people pressured. She's like, I'm here to set an example. And if I can't show that, to my own kids, then what's the point? Like, then who's going to do it? If I don't do it now, will we wait another generation for this to happen? Right. So I think when you have pioneering parents like that, like your mom being the first engineer at IBM, it's just such a big gift. I think with this podcast and everything I do is that showing people that, who didn't have moms like us, just showing them that, they have all these possibilities because they didn't grow up in those households. So I think it's heartwarming what can happen and exciting, actually, what can happen when women really step into their brilliance and just make choices that makes sense for them.
Yes,
and we let them do that.
and your first of all, your mom sounds amazing. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to her too.
Yeah.
And I hope that that this period, this COVID-19 period, at least helped to change some households. It's definitely definitely not all. There's definitely a lot of inequality. We're now hearing about some return to work without adequate childcare.
Mm-hmm.
Means that that you have more women staying at home than men, but it definitely also opened up opportunities by putting families on the same footing. Everyone were at home and have an opportunity to kind of reset what what home and the role of both parents in the household. And I hope, people are talking about how the world will change. We don't know exactly how, but we know it's going to change. And I hope one of the things that we're going to carry with us into the future is that we'll realize that we've made progress in women's in inequality in general, that we've given women a new opportunity to be parents, and equal opportunity to be seen as equal caregivers in their household. Let's just let's just hope.
Yeah. Let's just hope that nobody raises their eyebrows next time a mom or a dad says, I need to work from home because my kid is sick. Let's just hope that people never raise eyebrows, because they've all done it now.
Exactly. Absolutely.
That's so cool. So I have just a few more questions real quick. I'm going to ask you, what's your superpower?
Bridging between a dream and a reality.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Like making things happen.
Yeah. Isn't it so fun to see it come to life every step of the way? Like this whole idea, vision, whatever you have, and to hold it in your hands, it's like so incredible.
It's a huge privilege. It's really scary.
Yeah.
But it's a huge privilege to build something. It's an incredible privilege.
Yeah, and I think it's it's an innate need as humans. We really want to create and leave something behind. So it's really cool. And then, what do you think women can do to start believing in their brilliance?
Just execute on that and see how well they're doing. Also, I don't try to be men. Don't try to prove that you think like men, or that don't succumb to that expectation. Just lead as an authentic woman, and you do wonders.
Yeah, and make your own choices, right? That's awesome. And tell us, what's your recent favorite book? What's something you've been reading?
So one of the sad facts about my life in the last couple of years is that, well, definitely less time for books, but the books that I do read happen to kind of all be startup life related, this or another. A book I very much enjoyed reading was Ben Horowitz's "What You Do Is Who You Are," which is very much about culture in the workplace, not obviously related to what my company is doing. It came to highlight how culture is today's most important asset of any workplace, but also gave some really practical guidance on how to intentionally design your culture rather than leaving it to coincidence, right? So I was really inspired by that book.
Awesome. And then finally, where can our audience find you and the Vault platform?
So we are vaultplatform.com, and you can contact us through the website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Awesome.
Perfect. That's so great. Yeah. We all have a house on social media, right? We have some houses in some different places. That's incredible. Again, thank you so much, Neta, for everything that you're doing and for sharing your story so openly. And happy Mother's Day to you, your late mom, and to your husband as well, because he's co-parenting with you, and to your daughters too, because they have a phenomenal mom.
Thanks. Trying to do her best at best. Um, but thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on this call with you, and happy Mother's Day to all. Happy Mother's Day to all the incredible women listening and tuning in if they're mothers. Yeah, thank you. It's been
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neta. This was incredible.
Thank you.
And that was Neta with her incredible STEM story. Make sure you use the links in the episode notes to follow Neta and her amazing work. Next week, join us again for a brand new solo episode. I'm going to give you some incredible and actionable advice. I'm also launching a brand new freebie, so make sure you sign up for it by using the link in the episode notes. Coming weeks are going to be amazing, so make sure you subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.